Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Top Producer Mindset. My special guest today is Rogelio Goertzen. Did I say that correctly?
You did.
Thank you so much. I know I invited you last minute to be here, and very excited to have you because you have an amazing story to share. And I've gotten to meet you throughout the years, and I've gotten to see your progress and the things that you're doing, amazing things that, a lot of people are watching on social media. And hopefully with this interview here, we get to dive a little deep into who you are as a person, because I get to see all the fun stuff you're doing. I get to see all the important stuff you're doing. I get to see all the great meetings and everything. And I think a lot of people are seeing that on social media as well. And they're probably curious about who you are also as a person and how you began this whole journey. So take us back, and let's start from, what was your upbringing like?
Yeah, great question. So I'm actually Mexican and German, and I was born in Canada, Windsor, Ontario. And my family started the very first Hispanic church in Windsor, Ontario.
So you were on the other side of the border.
Yeah, other side of the border, completely different.
You skipped the U.S. and went straight to Canada.
Exactly.
All right.
Yep, that was thanks to my dad. He had German family, and they decided to move there from Mexico.
Okay.
Yep, and they started the first Hispanic church. It started in my uncle's living room with 5 people, and then it grew to a movement of 3,000. And that's where I was able to see the different cultures, the different nationalities coming together. And the beautiful part was there was no taqueria, there was no supermercado. So the place that people came for community was that church. That's where they connected with their culture. And so that was beautiful. And I became the worship leader at the age of 12 and an ordained minister at the age of 17, thankfully to that.
Wow. Yeah. And was there a big Hispanic community or Latino community where you were at?
There was, yeah.
Okay.
It grew. It kept on growing.
So that's how you're able to, because my next question was, how did you stay rooted, with being in Canada? Because I couldn't imagine,
Yeah, it was that. It was having to sing in Spanish. That taught me. Spanish was my first language, but then they transitioned to English for schooling, and se me fue. It completely left. And then learning how to sing in Spanish, that's what brought it back.
Yeah. All right. And okay, so you're in Canada. You were born there, right? So
Yeah.
you hadn't visited Mexico yet, right? Then
No.
Okay, so then it was there. And when did you actually get to visit Mexico for the first time?
So I actually visited Mexico for the first time probably about 5 years ago, and it was Cancun. I still haven't gone.
5 years?
Yeah.
Barely? Oh,
Yeah.
wow. That's crazy.
I've actually been to El Salvador more for mission trips than Mexico, but I love the cultura from every Latin American country.
Yeah, well, Cancun's a pretty awesome place for a first visit.
Yes.
I must admit. Here in Los Angeles, we're kind of lucky because we can drive over to Tijuana. Yeah. And, as youngsters, we would, even at the age of 15, 16, you go there so you can start drinking. At 18, I think is the thing over there. And It was a lot safer, I think, back then. And, we did a lot of those trips. So we got to see, a different side of Mexico and the whole Baja side. So I think that's the blessing that we have on this side, and then Los Angeles has a big, Hispanic community too. So it's really blessed in that sense. But anyhow, all right, so 17, you're a minister, you said? Yeah. And then how did you end up did you go to college? How did you end up in the mortgage game?
I was in business school, and then my girlfriend at the time convinced me to drop out and join into insurance. So I did that for a very brief period of time, and then we broke up, and I didn't have a game plan. I dropped out of school. I didn't know what to do. So that's when I jumped into mortgages, and I became a loan officer with Rocket.
Oh, with Rocket initially?
With Rocket,
oh,
yes.
Okay. I didn't know that part.
Yep.
And was it just, okay, let me check this out as a loan officer, or what enticed you to say, okay, I'm going to pursue this work as a loan officer?
They're in Detroit. Now it's the mortgage mecca, but they were targeting a lot of people from high school that were younger to become loan officers, and they would provide the whole training, everything. So a couple of my friends did it. So that's when I said, let me check it out. And so then I did, and I was a loan officer for about 2 years before I jumped over to UWM.
Okay. And I know your role at UWM was not an originating loans. Mm-hmm. How was your experience originating loans with Rocket? Did you enjoy that part, or?
I did, but I didn't. It was interesting because I was on the purchase side of things, and Rocket was trying to figure out how to tap into the Hispanic market. And call centers really struggle with those type of things because, as you know, Hispanics don't really like to do business over the phone. They want to meet you in person. And same thing with purchase transactions. They want to meet in person. So that's why we've kind of seen their strategy switch a little bit more for brokers.
Okay. And okay, so 2 years there. Were you a producing loan officer? You
I
did
was
okay. You did
producing, but it
okay?
was like
A lot of call
you
center
know.
leads, all that stuff.
Yeah, it was figuring out the purchase side of things. So it was more of sowing the seed. So it was a little bit different than the straight up cold calling, refinance, call center floor. So, but it was still a good experience nonetheless.
Yeah. And then what year was that, if you don't mind me asking?
That was 2012.
Okay, so right
Yeah.
after the market crash, and
Yeah.
things kind of started coming back.
Yep.
Because there was me and Steve, the ones that are running Equity Smart, the crash was a very difficult time. I mean, even a couple years after that, it was a little tough to get your footing back in the game. But I think 2011, 2012 was we started seeing a comeback. People started coming back, and all right. So 2 years, Rocket, UWM. How was that move? And it was totally more of an administration role, right? An executive role.
Yeah, well, I moved over to UWM and I was an account executive first for 14 months. And then they pulled me into a room and they said, "We've been watching you for the last 2 weeks." And that was Brian Miller and them. And that's when I was like, oh no, I'm going to get fired. What did I do in those 2 weeks? And that's when they said, "We want you to create your own role." I said yes, without even the title, the role, the responsibilities, the pay. My mantra was yes, just to be in the room with those people and to be able to build it out. And I had no idea at the time, but I was the very first team member that would build out Expert Ave, our sales too. So I was very hyper focused on the top 100 accounts in the nation.
Okay, awesome. And I know we jumped a little bit ahead, but before you got to that, because a lot of our guests went through some kind of turbulent struggles. Did you face any of that? You had a really good upbringing, and everything kind of led one thing to another, and you were
Absolutely. I got promoted. They said I was going to make a bunch of money, and I did not. And my BMW got repoed. I was expecting this big windfall of money, and that didn't happen. So absolutely, my whole life, even now, you get faced with obstacles and things that you don't expect, and you just have to stay focused on the mark of what did God call me to do, and that's what I've held my career to.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. All right. Well, yeah, I mean, that's good to know because so far, it sounded like, you're really okay,
Oh, no.
from one place to another, but all the stuff that happens in between to all of us,
Yeah.
right? And you said you got your car repoed?
Yeah, I did.
Okay, so you had this big expectation that all this money was going to flood in, and you got a little ahead of yourself.
Yeah, they were like, it's going to be easy. You're going to make so much money. And then they with the top accounts, we didn't have pricing. Our system wasn't great. Our process, we were still figuring out because I joined UWM right when all the greats joined too. That's when Melinda Wilner, the COO, joined. So we were figuring out a lot of our infrastructure and what our identity was and what we were going to do. So it took us a minute to ramp up.
And this was in the original United Wholesale building, right? Not the new one, the campus, right? Because I remember visiting the original one. And by the way, when I went to visit that office, I was like super impressed already because it had a store. It had, I think massage, all the things that the current place has now. And I was like, wow, I was really impressed. And then, so you were there. You guys moved over to, I guess Pontiac, and did your role transform? I know that they allowed you to create your own role. So how did you eventually settle in your role?
Absolutely. I created my own role 4 different times. They didn't know what to do with me. And that's the beautiful part. Like when people are like, well, what do you do? I don't know what I do because I'm me. I show up every day and I just do what I'm called to do with the connections that I have. So a lot of the things that you see today that UWM built, like their broker owner success track, I helped create that curriculum. Like their concierge, I helped develop that. I was technically the first concierge because all the problems, escalations, issues, frustrations would come to me and I'd have to figure out what happened and problem solve them for our top clients. So a lot of the things that you see, even the Dominate t-shirt, that was my idea. And I got an award for it and everything. And I'm
that's awesome. Congratulations. Yeah. To know that a Latino, Hispanics behind the scenes with the exciting part about your story is you got to, regardless of our relationship with UWM, Matt Ishbia did amazing things for the industry and he pioneered and he led the way for a lot of other lenders to follow suit on like, hey, this is how we got to treat brokers in the broker channel. And bring value to us, and lift us up in the sense that you guys are important, you guys matter, and we're going to provide the tools, resources, and things you guys need to succeed. And for me, he's, I'm always going to thank him for that no matter what, because he paved the way for that. But how is it being with such a great mind? Because, if you know Matt Ishbia's story, he went from, I guess graduating from college and just starting a division with under his dad's company, right? And then from there he flourished, and you got to witness this huge expansion in such a short period of time. So how is that? Is that incredible?
It's you can't put a price tag on that. That was better than college. That was better than university to get trained by a billionaire. And it's funny because I texted him Happy Father's Day because I hold him to that level. Like my 20s were with him. So I feel like he raised me. My dad
in the industry, yeah.
Exactly. My dad took me so far, but then he helped raise me and teach me things that nobody else could really teach me, that my father couldn't really teach me. So I learned so many things from work ethic, attitude, and he was the 12th employee, and he believed when nobody else believed. I was around when other CEOs of big banks and lenders would laugh at him and they would say, "What are you doing? The wholesale channel, there's no money in that. There's no margin. Why are you going after that? Focus on retail. That's where the big dogs are playing." And he would stay loyal to his vision, what he thought was best. And now we can see, it paid off for all of us.
Yeah. He and I think it was a smart play because the thing that the broker channel will always have is we have loan officers embedded in different communities. We're here in Los Angeles, right? And our reach is going to be way better than a call center loan officer's reach because we can physically walk into offices. We can go to local meetups and events where we can shake hands and physically meet people, which gives our model a huge advantage over, let's say, a call center, right? Yeah. Because they can't do that. They got to get them on the phone, number one.
Absolutely.
And they got to maintain the relationship through that. Whereas we can set up dinners and private little events.
You can meet the community where they're at.
Exactly. And they know where you're at as well. So I think it was a smart play. You get behind brokers, it's just going to keep growing and growing because it's like you have all these soldiers, implanted everywhere, and they're tapping into areas that it would be difficult for call centers to tap into. So
absolutely. And I also want to shout you out too, because you were one of our partners for a very long time, and we wouldn't be successful if it weren't for your loyalty and your partnership. And you served on our broker advisory council. You were one of the very first ones. That was an idea I created too, where I was like, let's put all these masterminds together, and I would handpick the people. I would put where they would sit, and we would get ideas. And a lot of your ideas we've actually implemented and has made UWM successful. So thank you for your ideas and your brain in this industry.
Well, yeah, no, and I thank you for the opportunity to have me involved in that, and I knew you played a big role in picking who's going to be behind the scenes there. But I think that was an important play for UWM because you want to hear from the people you're backing up and you're supporting. Like, what are the needs? How can we support you? How can we help you grow your business? And deep diving into that, led into all these new technologies, tools, and resources that we now have. And the good thing about UWM was that, they were swift at execution. They're running lean. I mean, there's one focus, like let's get mortgages. We're focusing on wholesale brokers. So it makes it a lot easier to move. And for a long time when I started in the business, Wells Fargo was, I think in 2000, 2001, they were the biggest player, but banks are big, they're clunky, they're like dinosaurs. I think I've heard Matt Ishbia say call them dinosaurs because they can't move quickly. They have old policies, they have old software, they have old technology, and to get anything implemented, it has to go through one department and approved by another department, and that could take months. Whereas Matt, you can see him just making decisions on the fly. Okay, now we're going to take the ship that way, and now we're going to go this way and that way, and it got to a point where everyone had to pay attention, and all the big players, even I honestly think Rocket, didn't still, even when the brokers channel started taking off, they didn't go all in on the brokers. They were still a little hesitant, and they tried to do this whole State Farm thing with converting the State Farm agents into loan officers. That was a big, dunk.
It didn't work.
Didn't work. And I think they got to a point now in the last couple of years where they realized we really need to get behind the brokers if we're gonna tap into this purchase market, and because we've been in a prolonged purchase market. I think the refis, Rocket, and all these other lenders, they do really well in a refi climate because that's the call centers are good for, but in a purchase market, you really want people inside the community that are working with realtors and side by side and all that, and I think that's one thing that they did really good. So you know. But again, we're here now, and getting back to your experience, did you get to learn? Did you get to? I mean, what is it like hanging out with someone that has a billionaire mindset? You know, we're talking. Our show is Top Producer Mindset, but
Yeah.
what billionaire mindset. That, most of us rarely get to hang out with someone that's thinking at that level.
Yeah,
So, what are some of the maybe, not to dilute the conversation too much, maybe
yeah.
like 3 to 5 things that stood out to you the most that someone at that level has and carries with them at all times?
What makes him so impressive is he's always on, and I hold myself to that same standard. I try to always be on and present. But there's a couple of things. One, his schedule. He runs his schedule in 15-minute increments, and he'll have his assistant knock on his door 5 minutes before that 15 minutes is up, so that to keep him on that schedule. And if he really likes you, he'll push it into 20 minutes, because he leaves 5 minutes to go to the bathroom and such. But even running at that caliber, like I've never seen him have a bad day. And that said, I got to see the personal side of him, in the times when things didn't go the way that he planned or that he wanted to. He never really had a bad day. Yes, he faced obstacles, but his mindset was, what's the positive in this, and how can I turn this around for the betterment of the community and the betterment for my company? Another thing that really sticks out to me, he was very hyper-focused on creating measurable things to dictate, his success. So, for example, he wanted to be a better dad. Well, how do you really measure that? So he created tangible things. He set aside a date night for each one of his kids where he would give them undivided attention, no phone, no technology, no one would interrupt, and he would spend an hour with them. And arguably, he challenges people and he says that hour with them is way more than you spending your entire month with your kid off and on because you're on your phone or you're answering your emails or phone calls, different things like that. And he would challenge people like that. That simple piece of advice I took on, and I said, you know what? I want to be a better son. How can I be a better son to my parents? And so I started scheduling weekly calls with my parents. And every Thursday I would call my mom, driving back from the office and such like that. And that's been able to even make my relationship with my parents even better. They're my best friends now, simply because of the measurable things that he did that would go back to the goal that he was trying to accomplish.
Yeah, that's important because I think if I'm reading this correctly, I think what we're saying here is that, we work hard to build all this wealth or success. And what are we doing it for? We're doing it for the people we love, right?
Yeah.
But if you're not spending the time with them and you're just, you're with them, but you're checked out, then what are you really doing all this for if you're just completely checked out? And one of the things for me that, interesting enough, you bring this up is being present, and that's something that we all struggle, especially now in this age and time where we have so many distractions, right? And it's like one thing after another, especially when you have an executive role where, you're pushing an agenda and you got to keep things going, and just making those moments to pause and let's say, hey, wait a minute, time out. I need to pay attention to who I am. And I love taking technology breaks now. I mean, I tell my kids, like, we're putting our phones away, everyone, like, no one's on their phones. And it almost feels good now. It's like a reward for myself. And that's good that you got to see that, someone at that level doing that, the efficient schedule. I think, that's putting, in my mind, because some schedulings or some meetings can get out of control, right? And non-productive, and you're spending way too much time where, I think 15 minutes, probably enough time to get to the meat and potatoes and move on to the next meeting.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because if you're running a big company and you want to do things quickly, you can't be having long meetings that are not productive and then meetings that are not going nowhere. You got to get boom, 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 get them done really quick. Anything else that stands out before we move on? I know for me, his energy was like just intense.
Oh,
like
his energy is
I don't know where he
amazing.
came from, but he was just like boom,
So I was fortunate enough to be in a lot of closed room meetings, and one time this broker asked him, "What was the biggest mistake that you've made?" And interestingly enough, he didn't even hesitate. He goes, "I have no idea because I pivot." So as soon as something doesn't work, he's changing.
He's already on.
He's already on to the next.
Wow.
So he doesn't sit there and linger. Why didn't this work? Let me go figure this out. Let me go call a round table as to why it didn't work. No, it didn't work. Great. Let's move on. Let's pivot. Let's keep that momentum going. The momentum, especially in that building, it's infectious. Like, everybody in that building understands the goals, the visions, and the metrics. And what I love about him so much is he knew that he was going to be number one. I knew he was going to be number one too. But when I started, we were only doing 10 billion. And now, we took him from 10 billion to 330 billion at the height of the market. And that's truly impressive. He would microdose those goals. So our 3-year goal when I first started was 20 billion. How do we double? And then from 20 billion, 50 billion. How do we double with plus a little bit more? And he was actively, he didn't just say, let me do 150 billion tomorrow, because he knew that that would discourage us, we would be like, how are we going to do that? We can't do that. So he would microdose those goals to us, and everyone in the company, from the janitor all the way to the executive and the COO, we knew how we could help that company grow and what we were contributing to. And that's where I think a lot of mortgage companies miss the mark. They might set a goal. They might say they want to be number one. What does number one mean? Do you want to be number one in volume? Do you want to be number one in units? Do you want to be number one in purchase? Do you want to be number one in non-QM, number one in manufactured? Like, there's so many definitions of that you have to be very clear with your team, and then create the small little goals so that everyone understands where it is that they're going.
Yeah, no, it's impressive, the machinery he created there at UWM. But enough about that. I just wanted to get in there because I'm sure a lot of the stuff that you got to witness from that level of intense work ethic and everything else is carrying over to the things that you're doing now that we're actually going to talk about. Because that's why it's important. We needed to bring that up. And so, fast forward to today, or maybe a few years back, I think you made a move to Equity Prime, and then take us back to where this whole idea of home started, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was the very first Spanish speaker at UWM. I would translate between all the departments, and anytime that a Latino would come in the door, they'd be like, "Ro, another Mexican came." And I'd sit down with them, and they would tell me the same thing. We need Spanish documents. We need better products, different things like that. And I would take note of it, and it'd be like, okay, I would advocate behind the scenes. But one of the things that I recognized after we became the number one lender, there's 150 different lenders and banks that are out there. So what can I do to be a voice to all of those lenders and banks so I can elevate things for the betterment of our community? So now that America knows brokers are better and that brokers are the best option, how do I go and educate my community? Because the biggest stigma that happens, Hispanics and multicultural families, they go into a bank and they think that no means no everywhere, when there's 150 different lenders and options, and they have a different appetite in the secondary market. So that's where home kind of stirred up. And I never really was focused on the Hispanic community, although I would translate. I was focused on the top 100. But there was one loan officer, and Latinos, we don't like to listen to other Latinos. I don't know what it is, but we don't, me included. And there was one Latino that I told him, he was like, "Rogelio, I'm really struggling in LA. What should I do?" I told him, "Well, your market's too saturated. Go move to Las Vegas. Here's a list of people, like, good luck." And, that was it. A year later, he comes up to me with the same email that I gave him. He goes, "Rogelio, I did everything on the list. Now what?" And I was like, no Hispanic has ever listened to me, so I didn't know what to do next.
He thought he was just going to blow you off.
Yeah, I thought he wasn't going to commit to it, because very rarely do Hispanics execute on some of the stuff. And that's where home is empowering Latinos and multicultural groups to say, hey, let's execute on these things. What are our dreams? Don't get discouraged because they say no to Spanish documents or because they say no to item products. Go back and ask again in 3 months. Go back and ask again in 6 months, because that tenacity is what actually gets something accomplished in this industry. So that's where home kind of was created. And then I slowly started picking, the ones that had the heart to serve their community.
So is Home a nonprofit, LLC, or what is it?
Yeah, Home is a nonprofit, and our vision and our goal is to help every single mortgage company grow and scale.
Okay, and so now you're partnered with Equity Prime, right? Or and it sounds like they give you the kind of the same role, like create your own role type of thing. Because you never said I'm what is your role there? Let's say.
I mean, they've called me Chief Growth Officer, and then they've also called me like business development. So I don't know what I do. I still don't know what I do. 14 years in this industry, I just show up and I create relationships and I move the needle within the industry.
Yeah. So. For those of you that don't know, Eddie Perez is the CEO. I've gotten to meet him. He's an amazing human being. He loves to share his story about, his immigration from Cuba, his parents, right, to the U.S. And so he gets it, he understands it, and I think I just saw an article about it, let's talk about that.
Yeah, so he is the very first lender in the wholesale channel to roll out language access. So not only Spanish documents, but in 6 different languages. So yeah, he was the first one that said yes. And, we have a list of people. So if you have a lender out there that's interested, contact me, because we want to go and help facilitate that to make it available for all lenders.
So now, so you have them in these 6 different languages. So if someone, and I guess there's a huge need for that, right? We have a lot of people immigrating to the country. They're buying a home and they get their documents in English, and it's a little difficult for them to I guess interpret what they're signing, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And what makes this technology great is it not only translates it, but it also talks to them. So they can hit play and it explains what an escrow is, and it explains different things. And a lot of times in multicultural families, they are shy to tell you what they don't know. And they will just stay quiet and they will just sign without fully understanding what they're signing because they're embarrassed. But what this technology does is it empowers them from the comfort of their own home to understand what it is they're actually signing. And,
ask all the right questions.
Exactly. And someone once said, they were like, well, the demographics, 1 million Hispanics turn 18 every year. They speak English. Yeah, but you're discounting their abuelita, their tío. Like, Hispanics are multi-generational too. We don't just live in a household by ourselves. So we might have co-borrowers that English is not their first language. And I don't know about you, but I've seen 8-year-olds translate loan documents at a closing table. That it's like that weight, that shouldn't be on an 8-year-old to go and do that. So I'm very excited about this technology being available and for EPM being the first one to launch it.
I think that's great, yeah, because me as an early loan officer in the late 1990s and early 2000s, what I noticed with the Latino borrower was that they made the choice to work with you based on trust, because they knew they weren't going to understand the documents, and they knew that they just needed to hope that you were going to do a good job for them, right? And when I recognized that myself, I said, you know what, I'm just going to do good by people, because the word's going to get out and I'll get more customers, because I see that there's no understanding, because I'm the one having to explain everything. Like, what does all this mean, right? When you had the original loan estimate before this one that we have. And when you do people good, you just get rewarded by more referrals and more business. And that's kind of how I grew. But it's good to know that now that, there's a big push. Even that was like 20 years ago, and, we're doing that now. And the cool thing now is AI is a powerful tool. I use it myself with, I get legal documents. Like, we're analyzing contracts with that we have with the wholesale lenders.
Of course.
And they'll send us a 34-page, and I just pop it into AI and like, hey, can you summarize this? What are the pros, the cons? What are the risks? And I think, and I'm starting to see, I don't know if you're noticing, but I'm starting to see more of the Latino community jump on AI as well. Yeah. And I think it's just overall making everyone smarter consumers, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And jumping into that, that's another thing that we developed with Home. We're partnering up with Guideline Buddy to use AI. How do we bridge all of the lenders' guidelines together, but then also make it accessible so that they can search things in real time as things update? So Home is really focused on, we've heard the industry complain about the same things for years, that it's like, how can we develop something together as a unit to empower all of us so that we're all feeding it? Oftentimes I see brokerages or even mortgage companies, they're building things for themselves, but what happens if we all build things together? And so what I love what Home is doing is we're being that bridge between everybody, and we're saying we're not competitors. This industry is a $2.7 trillion industry. There's plenty of business to go around. Let's help build something bigger in the benefit of the consumer and the community that we serve.
Mm-hmm. Okay, cool. And what does the future look like for Home in, like, say 3 to 5 years from now? What do you see it doing for, like, say, our shops or other people's shops, or or the consumer?
Absolutely. So I don't know if you know this statistic, but only 1% of originators are Hispanic, and you hold the largest Hispanic brokerage. So it's an honor to be here with you, and thank you so much for pouring into people. But a lot of Hispanics and multicultural families don't understand that this is a career path. So first and foremost, we want to be that pathway that goes into the colleges, into the universities, that brings that new lifeblood. Because I don't know if you know this, but the average age of loan officers is 55. and they're all white. So we want to basically, be that person that says, hey, have you thought about a career in mortgage? And even if they only are a loan officer for 2 years, guess what? They're going to understand the home buying process, and they're going to educate their friends and family about it as well. So we view it as serving selflessly, and that will elevate everybody collectively. But we're focused on everything, all housing issues too in Washington come to us. We're working on passing a bill within the next 4 years that is going to make language access important from origination all the way down to servicing as well. But there's so many things on our initiatives of things that we're doing. I want to help fix our DPA products because the majority of those, that's clunky. Like there's so many things in this industry that are clunky that I feel like together with our brains, because you and I both are Mexican and German. So those two attributes with those genes, I feel like we can innovate the industry collectively and help raise the bar to a whole new level that, to be honest with you, the C-level leaders are not even thinking of. And they might not even be in those positions in 3 to 5 years, but we're thinking bigger, long-term, and for the future of this industry.
Yeah, that's great. That's awesome. And that's why, Equity Smart supports home. We want to get behind you guys and your agenda, because for me, my career path as a loan officer wasn't like, I researched it and said, I'm going to do this. I just stumbled into it. I got out of college, studied sociology, and thought I was going to get into probation work or something like that. And because I had student debt, I think they give about 6 months, like, okay, you got to start paying this in 6 months. I'm like, I got to get a job, right? Yeah. And I got a job. One of my buddies got me a job at Wells Fargo, started doing loans, and I loved it. And I'm like, wow, like this is something that no one tells you about. And so when we hire people, I'm always curious. I always ask them, like, how did you know about being a loan officer, right? And because I'm always curious. And in most cases, by the way, it's relatives or people or someone in the family that was doing that showed them that. But there's really no outreach. And one cool thing that we're doing here is that I think we've already done it 2 years or 3 years in a row, is we go to Cal State LA, and we go to their career center. We talk about this career path, right? And Ethan, is that where we met you too, or no? Or
no, but I was on the last one talking to the interns there.
Yeah, wasn't that awesome? Yeah. So he got to witness that, and for me, I love being at those things because young people are hitting you up. They're trying to graduate from college, and like, what am I gonna do? And I'm like, hey, this is a great career path, and the 4 things that I always talk about that we have now in this industry that I think no other industry has is, number 1, we have complete control of time. We control our time. If I want to work 3 hours today or 4 hours on whatever, I could set my schedule however I want. The other thing that we have, and it became more recently after the market crash, when they allowed DocuSign and they allowed the bars to email their income and asset documentation, because that wasn't a thing before. Yeah. And so now loan officers have mobility. So now they can not only have control of the time, they can move. The third thing is you can make as much or as little income. That's always been there, by the way. Yeah. That's never went away. But that's something that's very powerful, because if you want to turn up the volume on yourself, you can make a lot more income, and I remember in 2005, I always remember this month because it was the day that my appendix ruptured. Ooh. And I had a bunch of loans, and I think I made about $225,000 in commissions just in 1 month. Yeah. In 2005, when $10,000 was $10,000, right? Yeah. And I was, the funny thing is, I didn't work all month because I was out in the hospital. So I had my older brother. I paid him $25,000 to finish off my pipeline. Wow! But that's the type of money we were making, and for me, it was like, this is an opportunity, to start developing wealth and, and helping the community. And for me, it also, the other thing was helping the consumer. So I have a lot of customers that help from 2001, 2002, all these customers that reach out to me like, hey, thanks to you, I bought this house for $150,000. Now it's worth like $700,000-800,000. I've been able to put my kids in college. I've been able to take the equity out and open businesses and stuff like that. So for me, that reward of knowing that I helped so many people along the way, and that reward is still there, carrying to this moment. I ran into this ex-fireman that I did a loan for. there was the Altadena fires, and you were generous enough to, help some of our processors here with that crazy moment. And his house was spared, but I had helped him with this loan, and I ran him to the market, and Rogelio, I can't tell you the feeling of like someone coming up to you and just thanking you, or like an angel saying, you got me at my house, I got my kids, they're all grown up, and the ripple effect that we have. And thinking that we just closed the loan. I've always been a purchase loan officer, by the way. So I've always helped people with purchases more than refis. And you walk away, but you don't realize what you walk away from, and the lives that the lives that you impacted, and the lives that are blooming, and the children that are coming, and all that. So it's amazing. It's been an amazing journey, and I want to be able to allow people that are interested in learning about this industry and creating a career path for them. That's really, I think, something that I'm really devoted to. And this is why at Equity Smart, we hire not only seasoned loan officers, newer loan officers, we have a mentorship program. We have all these things to help people that want to get started. Because we know, you and I know, I think it's a rough industry to get into.
So rough.
But once you break in and you figure everything out, it's
once it clicks, it clicks.
It's rewarding. I mean, I can't tell you the rewards that it comes with. So
I first want to commend you, because it's just, being a broker owner, it to your point, everyone sees the Instagram and they see the success and they see the house and they think that it's easy. But being a broker owner and leading 500 people, it's not easy. And so I really want to commend you for your leadership. You're a pillar in this industry, and you give and you give and you pour into people. And there's so many things that you've done for people that you don't even keep a tally of the things that you do. But I know your heart and who you are. And so I just wanted to thank you for being who you are in this industry. And I'm so honored to be in this industry with you. I'm honored to be building with you. And I'm excited for where things are going, because I know you're already successful and that you already hit, your goals. But I have a feeling that we haven't even scratched the surface of where we're going to go, because us uniting and collaborating and just building this industry together, like, I feel like it's just the beginning of another chapter.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for those kind words. I mean, sometimes I don't stop and think about, everything that's been done. It's just, you're just doing, you're just like, okay, what's the next thing I got to accomplish? These last 2 weeks, we had the California DFPI in our office. They were auditing everything. We're like, crossing our fingers, hoping that, everything goes well. And it did go well. I think we had a good exam. It's a routine exam. And it's great because, we're in a heavily regulated industry, and for us to be able to navigate that while at the same time, being productive and trying to create opportunities for people, I think it's great. I mean, I can't tell you what a rewarding, not just for the loan officer, but also for the community, the resources that we're providing for the local community, the jobs that we're creating here, and the opportunity for there to be more home buyers, especially in underserved communities, So that's a really huge thing for us. So there's a lot of reward in this industry, and I really want to use home to get kind of that message out, like, hey, this is not just it's not just the mortgage industry. There's so much more behind it that I think people cannot see, because when people think of mortgages, we just think of debt. We think of like, I got to make payments, but there's so much ways that we're helping people that, we've got to get that word out. So I hope we get to an opportunity to do more and more of that down the road,
Absolutely.
So, yeah. Any last words? Do you have any words for the community out there? I know for me, I know you, I know your story, and I'm sure that this podcast we put together will give a lot of insight to folks about who you are, your story, a little more about you, because and one thing I did want to touch on before I forget, I see you just networking with some of the big players in our industry. And, I know a lot of these guys. I know like Mike Cordas from Nexa Mortgage. I don't know if you hang out with Twan and Dan Iskander and all these guys that are big players and in the industry. And they're all doing great things, and trying to really push the wholesale broker channel. What's your plan? Like, with all this networking, like, are you trying to get everyone together through home or what's the agenda here?
There is no agenda. I show up every day, and I've been fortunate enough to know anyone who's anyone in mortgage, but I mainly, show up with a servant's heart of, what do they need and how can I help them grow and scale? I don't recruit, I don't promote, I don't place loan officers. Everyone's trying to hire me for their brokerage or even their lender. But I'm very focused on what does my community need and how can I serve it? And oftentimes, the majority of the times, I'm helping lead those CEOs behind the scenes. So, my marketing person is here and she gets to witness some of the advice that I give CEOs. Like a lot of times CEOs don't have people to pour into their lives. And Matt Ishbia used to be available and do all that stuff, but when he, got the Phoenix Suns and the White Sox, there was a void. And so I feel like I'm kind of stepping into that, and they're leaning on me for relationship advice. And I'm by no means a good relationship advice person, but they're leaning on me for CEO advice of what would you do? How would you lead? I want to grow. I want to scale. So a lot of the things that I'm doing with them, it's honestly self-development.
Kind of like consulting.
Yeah, we're both growing each other. And then I'm also consulting, like, how can I grow home? What does the industry need? What are you struggling with as a broker owner? So a lot of it is more mastermind, but I don't know what God has planned with all these relationships. I do have a dream of opening up my own bank because I don't want to beg a lender for an ITIN product or something that our community needs. So I'm putting that out there into the world that's my end goal. I do want to build something for the Hispanic community. When that will happen, that might happen in 5 years, that might happen in 10 years, it might happen in 2. But I'm putting that out there that I don't want to have to beg lenders for some of the stuff that I've been having to do. Like, luckily, I've been fortunate enough to be tenacious, but it takes a lot of courage to go to these big lenders and beg for Spanish documents or beg for ITIN products when these are things that are mutually beneficial to two parties, but I don't want to have to beg anymore. So that's what I'm doing. But the way that people in the community can help support us, go to tunuevohome.com. That's where you can come and become a member. For $249, you not only get the technology, but you get the community. What's really special about us, and I know you've been a part of a lot of organizations, we're not an organization. We're not an institution. We are a community of people that believe in each other. And what I love about what we're building is that there will be loan officers that are from 2 different brokerages, but they take the time to pour into each other. Oh, you're struggling with pricing? Your broker owner's not sharing this? Don't worry. Don't be embarrassed. Give me a call. Let's hop on a quick Zoom call. And oftentimes, they might not understand how you vocalize something, but they need somebody else to articulate it differently. And that's what we're really building within the industry, is this community that some people have tried to divide and tried to keep people segregated. We're saying, no, it doesn't matter. If you're in retail, you're still my brother. If you're at this other brokerage, you're still my family. Let's collaborate. Let's build. There's no competition here. Did we do all the loans in the zip code? No, let's go get loans together. So that's the mentality of that. So if you're watching us, connect with our community, follow us on our social pages, become a member, and we're going to be launching a lot of things, but one of the things that my marketing person just yelled at me to promote, we're going to be putting together, similar to UWM's Wednesday morning meetings. Once a month, we're going to be bringing everyone together to talk about industry news, lender updates, things that are going on. Because I don't know if you know this, but the CFPB recently launched an update, and they made it retroactive from May, where now underwriters will use underwriter discretion to use immigration status as an ability to repay a loan. So we're seeing people that used to be approved denied different things. Not all lenders are adopting this, but we are seeing a lot of big ones do it. Mm-hmm. So my team is effectively looking at all of those policies. And like I said, we focus on everything. So from government affairs, from things that the CFPB is doing, Fannie, Freddie, we're digging into everything, and we're focused on finding those solutions to innovate the industry for everybody. So get involved, plug in. If you want to serve, connect with us. We'd be more than happy to help.
Yeah, so if anyone's interested out there in wanting to participate, they have that energy they want to give, and they give through participating in home. We'll put some information in there for you to reach out to you guys, right? So where they can become members or be more involved than they want to be, Yeah. So all right, cool, awesome. All right, well, I think we're nearing the end. So normally any guest that I invite, we actually have a fish bowl here, or a Pandora's box, we call it. Or we want to try something different. We can go to AI and ask a very difficult question.
I don't know. I feel like AI can be a little funky. Sometimes I yell at it a lot to think better and faster and brighter. So I don't know if I trust AI with a question. I think I'm going to trust the Pandora's box over here.
All right, so let's go in here. You're going to reach in here, grab the question, and I'm going to read it out loud.
All right.
It's going to be industry related, so right. Yeah, we're not going to put anything crazy. All right. Okay, if you found out today was your last day on Earth, what would you do?
That's a good question. I would fire everybody. I'm kidding. If today was my last day, I would record messages for everybody that meant something to me because I've created so many deep relationships, not only in this industry, but in life in general. So I would create a video for everybody that meant something to me so they had something. But I would also leave them with wisdom and conviction as to how to make their life better. And I would remind people, I would record a video for everybody. And this is my message to the world. You are one of one. There will never, ever be anybody else on this earth with your DNA, with your parents, with your upbringing that is around as technology is innovating. Like, think about that. We're Mexican and German at this specific time that AI is disrupting everything. Your kids won't be able to experience this specific time. It'll be different. So I really want to encourage people to step into their purpose and think bigger and dream bigger and become everything that you're called to do because you're one of one and the time is now.
Awesome. Well said. I mean, wow, that's. I was thinking of spending the day on the beach, but no, that's an amazing answer. Very, very giving, very serving. So thank you for that. And I want to thank you for being a guest here. I think hopefully we accomplished what we wanted to do and we got to know you a little bit better. And I think I did. And thank you so much. I've always known you to have a good heart, be equal and fair with everyone, and very likable and a pleasure to be around. Fun. We've had some fun together.
We have.
All right. Thank you guys so much. We'll see you guys next time.